All coaches aspire to be champions, and this time of year is when you set that vision for your team. By now, listeners of this podcast know about signature championship rings and have met some of the signature champion coaches who partner with them to celebrate their achievements. Reputable, affordable, first-class customer service are just some of the ways we keep hearing coaches describe signature championship rings. So as you're ramping up this summer for the upcoming season, create a championship vision for your team now using the design tool at signaturechampions.com/podcast. Give your team a visual to motivate their pursuit of a championship in 2024. And when your team has a championship moment to celebrate, we highly recommend consulting with Signature Championship Rings.
We do run a lot of different packages, but we are able to keep within the framework of our scheme of things. And, I think for us, it's been a big key to our success is that we're able to give you a lot of different looks, yet it's not too complicated for the kids.
On today's episode of Coach and Coordinator presented by Vertical Raise, we are joined by Rob Zimmerman, the head coach of the DeWitt Panthers in Michigan. He's had a remarkable career spanning 27 years. Under his leadership, the team has achieved an impressive record of 250 wins and 54 losses, reaching the semifinals or finals 14 times and winning the state championship in 2020. Coach Zimmerman shares his sustained passion for coaching and discusses the importance of adapting to the evolving nature of the game. He emphasizes the significance of building strong relationships with players, the community support, and the stability provided by his long-term coaching staff. Coach Zimmerman also shares his challenges, particularly during the 2020 COVID-19 pandemic, and the strategies he employs to maintain consistency and success in his program. He not only highlights the importance of making football enjoyable for his players through team activities and community involvement, but also the joy he brings to the game. Additionally, he touches on the effective use of their fundraising platform, Vertical Raise, which has significantly streamlined their fundraising efforts. Coach Zimmerman concludes by discussing his offensive strategies, emphasizing the adaptability of their scheme to fit their players' strengths, which keeps the game exciting and challenging for his team. Stay tuned for our Winning Edge takeaways following the interview. What you see on tape is a direct reflection of what you teach and how you teach. Video is important, but if you don't teach well, you're not going to like what you see on your video. First Down Playbook has been helping coaches teach better for 13 years. It allows you to present installs, playbooks, and practice cards in half the time with NFL quality. Coaching tools like video pairing, a player app, practice schedules, and wristband sheets have made First Down Playbook a program management system with everything in one place. If you're in a position of leadership with your football program, receive a free 1-week look at First Down Playbook. Call them at 512-814-6158 or visit them on their website or social media. Mention Coach and Coordinator Podcast or use the coupon code COACH24 to receive a $100 discount off the normal $700 First Down Playbook team membership price. Links and the phone number are in the show notes. On today's episode of Coach and Coordinator, we talk with a coach who's had a lot of success at his current school. In 27 years, they're 250 and 54. They've been in the semis or finals 14 out of their 25 years that he's been there. They were state champs in 2020. Coach has been honored as NFHS National Coach of the Year. He's been the Detroit Lions and NFL Coach of the Year and runner-up nationally for the NFL Coach of the Year. Does an incredible job. So we're excited to talk to Rob Zimmerman, the head coach of the DeWitt Panthers, here today on the podcast. Coach, thank you for joining me.
Very welcome. Look forward to it.
So, Coach, we want to get right into it. And you've been coaching a long time. You've been a head coach now going on 28 years. Being a coach at any level of the game, whether that's an assistant coordinator or a head coach for 28 years, certainly is a grind. But the thing you mentioned to me before we got going is that your energy and excitement for the game is as much today as it was when you first got started.
Yeah, absolutely. We're very fortunate here. We have great community, and our kids have bought in for a real long period of time. And that's probably part of my excitement is just kids continue to work and are excited about football. But I'm very passionate, as every head coach is, about the game. And I'm super excited to get going with our summer workouts and get ready for this fall.
I think, Coach, what's really interesting is that you still have that energy and excitement as the game has become tougher and tougher to coach. And we've added so many more variables to what we do. So how have you been able to adapt over time to be able to keep that energy and excitement?
I think a key to it, you do have to adapt. The game has changed immensely over the years, not only from a scheme standpoint, but just all the off season and all the variables with what kids have been through. And so, we have to be able to adjust. And I think that's the key to running a successful program is you have to accept that things are changing and you have to do your best to be able to adapt what's happened. But, football is still football. And even though it's more work and things have changed, if you love the game and you love coaching, you're going to be fired up about it regardless of what you have to deal with. And I think ultimately, the greatest reward is seeing the kids have success and seeing the improvement and the growth of them as young men, and having an opportunity to have that impact on them is very rewarding for any teacher and coach. So I think that's a big part of what drives me and certainly our coaching staff is watching our kids mature and in the relationships that we build with them. And then obviously winning a few games in the process is obviously fun too.
Well, winning always makes things fun and does make it easier to adapt. For you, as you look back at those years, and we have had a lot of variables. I mean, the game has changed immensely even in just the last few years. But what is one of those variables that you look back at now and say, wow, that was a tough one to adapt to, but here's how we did it?
I think in 2020, it was the toughest season we've had, even though we won the state championship because of COVID. And Michigan had very, very strict rules. Maybe the biggest challenge was the fact that our kids had to get tested, I think it was twice a week now for COVID. And so you never knew what you're going to have from a player standpoint because if one kid tested, then he was out. And, we had 2 different delays in our season during that year. And unfortunately, we had just great leadership on that team. We were very talented, but we had great character kids and great leadership. And so those kids, bonded and they did everything they were supposed to do. But that was without question the hardest thing I've ever been through as a head coach because we knew we had an opportunity to be really, really good and possibly win a state championship. And we didn't want COVID to be something, one kid testing that was a significant player and could potentially ruin your season. So that was definitely a challenge, but our kids did such a great job that we were able to work through it.
When I look at your record and what you guys have done over the years, I see consistency. You don't pay attention to that a lot as a coach, but when you look at the numbers, I think when I looked at it, the first year you guys were 4-5, and you've had winning seasons ever since, performing at a high level, a lot of 10-plus win seasons in there. There's consistency in what you guys are doing. How do you find that consistency? How have you built that consistency into your program?
Well, certainly the relationship piece with the kids is number one, right? You have to build relationships. The kids have to know that you care about them. And that doesn't come just from me, but from my coaching staff. That's very important. You have to have a great work ethic from a coaching staff standpoint. The kids have to see you putting in the time as well if you're going to ask them to do that. And, we have a lot of other variables here that we're very fortunate that maybe some of the other communities don't have. I mean, we have tremendous community support. Friday nights are very, very special in this community. It's kind of old school, but Friday nights, this place is packed. And, my coaching staff, a majority of us have been together for a very long period of time, and that consistency is also very important. We have a great relationship amongst us as coaches, and we all trust each other. Our families are all very close. So there's a lot of things that go into it, but we've been able to maintain consistency with kind of all those different things with, our commitment to the kids from a coaching staff, the level of consistency that I have with the number of coaches that we have that have been together for such a long period of time, administrative support, all those things that weigh in on the ability to have a successful program. We've had those for a very long period of time. And so that's been a huge plus for us that we kind of know, okay, our kids understand the expectations and they're going to work. And my coaches, who are all the same guys, are going to do the great things that they do. The administration is going to continue to support us. And Friday nights are huge in DeWitt, with the number of people that come out to the games and the support that we have. So we're very fortunate to have all those things that we've had for such a long period of time because consistency ultimately is incredibly important in any successful program.
Yeah, we were talking about the variables and the things that change. And I know myself as a coach, one of the things you always have to handle in building a program, being able to have that consistency in a program, is you have to provide for your team beyond the basics, right? And I know for you guys, utilizing a platform that enhances your fundraising through technology with one of our partners, Vertical Raise, I would just love for you to talk about how that's changed things for you and really, I think, taking some of those things off of your plate.
Yeah, Vertical Raise has been very instrumental in our fundraising. It's been a huge part of what we've done with our off season. We used to have multiple fundraisers, but this has allowed us to make a much larger amount of money in a shorter period of time. So we really only have 2 fundraisers now, and that's our main one. Ryan Anderson, who runs Michigan, he's in charge of Michigan, has been our lead guy and done just a tremendous job for us. But that platform is great. You know, I think the least that we've cleared in our not giant community is $23,000 off from just one event with it, and made as much as $30,000 or $31,000 in our, I guess, into our fundraising account. And it really is a very seamless transition as far as being able to get our kids to do that. And so for us, it's been just a tremendous thing and really changed how we go about fundraising and the amount of time that we have to put into it.
I know there's a lot of platforms that do things digitally right now. Obviously, that's the way the world has gone. But I think what's unique in the approach, and talking to both coaches who have used Vertical Raise, and then in talking to some of the reps, I hear it from both sides, is they really take the approach that I'm the assistant coach on your staff that handles the fundraising. And, you know, Ryan Anderson is certainly successful there in Michigan doing that. How have you found that to be helpful in the way that Vertical Raise worked with you beyond the technology?
Well, we really don't have to do very much. When you have the launch, you know, you pass a little bit of information in advance to the kids. And then when we have the launch, we say about a minute worth of words to the kids. And then the Vertical Raise rep handles everything else. And the platform's outstanding, so we can see how much has been raised as we progress through it, and, you know, what kids we'd like to see work a little bit harder at it, et cetera. But there's very, very little work on our end as coaches. So it's just been a great, you know, program for us to be involved with, because a lot of fundraisers take a heck of a lot more work and organization than this does. Pretty much all of them, to be honest.
As coaches, we know that some of the biggest hurdles to our team's success can come from off the field. Your team needs support to tackle the endless list of expenses, uniforms, training equipment, travel, and more. But raising that money can feel like a full-time job. Thankfully, there's Vertical Raise. Vertical Raise is the premier online fundraising platform using innovative technology to create the easiest and most efficient system available. Raise more money in less time with a local fundraising coach who works with your team every step of the way to customize the ideal fundraiser. With options for online donations, digital discount cards, premium product sales, and even spirit shops, Vertical Raise has top-of-the-line solutions for every fundraising style. To find out more, visit verticalraise.com and we'll get you connected with an exclusive offer on your first fundraiser. I've always been interested in the use of technology to make our jobs more effective, so I'm excited to continue sharing modern football technology with you here on the podcast. This innovative system leverages tendencies to improve self-scouting, game planning, and in-game decision-making at the speed of the game. Modern football stands out because it's a battle-tested platform used by teams at all levels, like 4-time national champion Bishop Gorman, the 5-time California State champion Folsom Bulldogs, 6-time Texas State champion Lake Travis, Cal football, and the CFL's Grey Cup champions, the Montreal Alouettes. So book a demo today to see why these teams trust modern football technology. Visit www.teammofo.com/demo and mention Coach and Coordinator Podcast, or use the coupon code CC10 to receive 10% off your first year. So, Coach, I want to dig into the X's and O's with you. And one of the things you guys are known for is your offensive scheme. And you characterize it or identify it as the power spread, but that's a lot of things to you. As we talked about it, it's 6 to 7 packages. Could be different things week to week. It might look single wing. It might look Delaware wing tee, might look spread. But you guys are able to do that within the framework of your teaching so that it's simpler for you, but it's very complex to defend.
Yeah, one of our big pluses in our program is the commitment the kids make. And also we're blessed with kids are very bright. And so we're allowed to do some things maybe, that are on the edge as far as how much our kids can handle because of how intelligent they are. And we do run a lot of different packages, but we are able to keep within the framework of our scheme of things. And, I think for us, it's been a big key to our success is that we're able to give you a lot of different looks, yet it's not too complicated for the kids. And obviously it takes a lot of time in the off season. You have to kind of work through what your kids can handle and what you're going to be the most successful at. I think the biggest challenge for us as coaches is we're always going to tweak what we do. We don't say, okay, this is what we do and run with it each year. We're going to adapt a ton. And, and I continue to look at different programs and great things that both colleges and high schools are doing and see if there's things that we can take that will fit within our framework of our offense. And that's one of my favorite things to do as a coach is spend time going and looking at other programs and what they do. And, I enjoy that as much as anything. So if we have the personnel to do it, we're going to give you as many different looks as we possibly can.
Yeah, I know that causes a lot of issues for defenses, and you like to do it out of the same personnel groups. I know for myself, the challenge as a young coach, one, you go to a clinic, you fall in love with ideas because everything works in a clinic. You always see the best things. But, you have to, even when you adapt those things, you have to fit, you mentioned the word framework. You have to fit it within a framework. Otherwise, it just becomes a grab bag of plays. And there were years where, I learned pretty quickly, like, man, this is not gelling together. This is not fitting together, not just for the kids, but for me in my thought processes. So what's that approach for you guys? I guess let's start on the coaching side of things in, again, that process of here's an idea. Here's some of the guys we have. This might work. Here's how we can fit it into what we do.
Yeah. So, we're going to start as soon as the season gets over with from the previous year on evaluating what we have coming back talent-wise, and then we're going to look at what we did, obviously, with those kids and see what was success, what wasn't. But I think a big thing for us on our offensive side, too, is to try to stay one step ahead of the game. So whatever we gave you the year before doesn't mean that you're going to see the same package. We'll have some of our base stuff still from year to year, but we're going to add some wrinkles. So teams that prep for whatever they saw the year before are going to see some new things, and it's kind of trial and error process. So I'm going to go out and take a look at different stuff that's been successful for other people and see, one, if it fits into what we do, and then two, how we look at running the different stuff. And as the summer, basically it's summer in Michigan, we don't have spring ball and we can't work with more than 4 at a time during the school year. So when we get into the summer, we're going to install and continue to work through that process and see where we're at by the time we get to the beginning of the season with what's going to be the best for us and what isn't, how much our kids can handle and what's going to make us the most effective. So there's a lot of time that goes into it with trying to add and tweak things. But again, that's one of the big things that's really fun about coaching is having the opportunity to go out and try to look at new scheme and develop things that are going to cause problems for other people and that your kids are going to have fun running.
Yeah, it's always great when it's fun for the kids. Part of that is that you're able to simplify it and you are able to fit it into structures. What does that look like on the player side? It's easy for us as coaches. We live this stuff. We sit and watch film all the time. We're studying it. Our guys, you mentioned your guys are committed to it, but they've got a lot of other things too as students and it's just as kids. So how do you make sure that we're great teachers of this, set up in a way that it's easy for them to learn?
Well, I think you got to take it step by step. You start from the very beginning with, and I'm going to be very basic, but we're going to start off with personnel groupings. And as I mentioned, I'd like to stay one if we can. This last year, we weren't quite as deep, so we ran 5 or 6 different personnel groupings at you. But if we have the opportunity to go one, then we're going to do that. But we start off with formations and then progress from there. And I think, as you said, the installation process is super important that you don't waste time. You have to make sure that it's things that your kids can most likely do so that you don't put things in that they're not going to be able to run effectively and waste time. As I said, we don't have spring ball, so we don't have as much time to do that, and we have more restrictions. Even in the summertime, we can work with 7 kids in a day with X's and O's, with the exception of 15 days where we can have camps, et cetera. So that organization piece, I think, would be the key to what you're asking, is incredibly important because of the limited amount of time that we have. We can't waste time with putting stuff in that we're not going to be, really good at and not continuing to improve.
Could you give us an example of a play for you? You mentioned 6 to 7 packages, but a play that you could line up and present in a number of different packages, maybe not all of those, but definitely across a lot of what you have available to you. Again, same play for your players, but obviously a lot different presentation for the defense.
Well, like a lot of programs, we run a lot of counter, variations off it. So, GT, GH, GHA. We're going to give you a lot of different counters and RPOs off them and an option built within that. So our kids in pretty much everything that we run are going to be able to run counter in some sort of variation of it without it being very difficult for them, because that's a staple in our offense for sure.
Coach, we've been focused on the kids a little bit here, and I think this goes back to what we talked about at the beginning, the energy and excitement that you have. And, there's so much for kids to get involved in today. When I was growing up 40 years ago, right, there wasn't a heck of a lot, right? It was a time and an era where there were 3 channels on TV, and you went outside and you played some kind of ball till the street lights came on and did a lot of stuff like that. We didn't necessarily have a lot of choices. Kids today have a ton of choices of things they can get into, both good and bad. I think a key to it, the energy and excitement you bring, but ultimately it's got to be fun for you and for them. So how do you make it fun for them?
Yeah, and that's the challenge, right? Because you want your kids to work extremely hard. Great programs pay a huge price. If you're going to be successful, they have to put in the time in the weight room, and they have to do all the camps and 7-on-7s, all that type of stuff. So how do you make it fun so they want to be a part of that? And certainly winning is probably the number one thing. If you win, then you get more kids that want to be a part of it and are willing to commit time to it. But they have to have some fun along the way. So we try to do different team. In the wintertime, we'll do team activities where we might go out to dinner or go see a movie, that type of thing. We have our community service events that we do where kids spend time together. In the summertime, we do the 7-on-7 tournaments. We go to several of those, and that's always fun for our kids because they get to compete, but, we'll stop and get food, or their parents do a great job with bringing a huge spread. We'll have a big following that goes to our 7-on-7 tournaments, and our linemen generally go to that too and participate in the big man's camp. But, I think for us and for every other coach in the country, the challenge is how can you find little things to do to make it fun to go along with all the work? Because there's more, I'll say this, there's more and more kids that don't want to make that commitment because it's so much work. And so we would be foolish if we didn't think that we needed to come up with ways to have fun for the kids as well as entice them to work as hard as they possibly can.
I think what goes right along with this, and you mentioned before, is that it's also the relationship. So yes, doing things that are fun are important, but ultimately, whatever you're involved in, if you're with people who care about you and those kids know you care, it's going to make a big difference, developing those relationships, that's going to go a long way to making all these things we talked about today work.
Absolutely. In today's world, I think probably in any high school sport, the relationship piece is more important than anything, because if you want those kids, we just talked about the options for them. If you want them to buy into what you're asking, be a part of the program, then they got to know you care, as we've said. And, and I think that makes it fun though, too. If you have great relationships with your kids, it doesn't have to be obviously all about football. Whether it's in Michigan, a lot of our kids like this weekend, they're going fishing and doing that stuff, and being able to talk about them and share stories, or talk to them about that and share stories, that type of thing. They enjoy that. And that whole relationship piece is a big, big part of it. And I think that helps keep you young as a coach too. If you care about your kids and do everything you can to be a mentor to them and help them mature, and they know that they can go to you with things, then it's ultimately going to help the program, but more importantly, going to help them as young men to grow up and be successful at whatever job or, whatever they pursue from a family standpoint, et cetera.
Coach, I'm excited we got to catch up here. Before we got going, we said, we both had our numbers in each other's phone before we got going. We couldn't remember why. I imagine at some point I wanted to talk to you on the podcast. So I'm glad I finally got you on here. We got to talk about your program. And, I just want to wish you and the DeWitt Panthers the best of luck here in 2024.
Keith, thank you so much. Very much enjoyed it. And I really appreciate you having had me on the show.
Here are winning edge takeaways and ideas for implementation. 1. Be adaptable and continuously learning. Coach Zimmerman emphasizes the importance of adapting to changes in the game, whether those changes are in scheme, rules, or the overall environment. He suggests that successful programs must be willing to evolve and incorporate new ideas each year. You should regularly analyze your team's performance, scout for new strategies, and be open to tweaking your approach based on the strengths and weaknesses of your current roster. Continuous learning from other successful programs and staying ahead of the game by integrating innovative tactics can help maintain a winning edge. 2. Build strong relationships and community support. Coach Zimmerman highlights the crucial role of building strong relationships with players, coaching staff, and the community. Developing a culture where your players know that their coaches genuinely care about them can lead to greater buy-in and commitment. This involves not just focusing on football, but also engaging in team-building activities and community service year-round. Additionally, having a supportive community that rallies around the team, especially on game days, creates an environment that the players are proud to be a part of. You should invest time in fostering these relationships and building a supportive network around your program. And 3, simplify complex strategies for your players. While innovation and complexity in play designs can be advantageous, Coach Zimmerman stresses the importance of simplifying these strategies so that they're easily digestible for players. This involves breaking down plays into manageable parts and ensuring that the teaching process is methodical and clear. You should focus on creating a framework where complex plays can be understood and executed efficiently by the team. This can also include using consistent terminology and formations to reduce confusion, allowing your players to focus on execution rather than trying to remember intricate details. Simplifying strategies helps your players perform better and makes the game more enjoyable for them. Be sure to check out our partner, Vertical Raise. Vertical Raise has many advantages and benefits for a program. The link to Vertical Raise is in the show notes. Follow all we're doing at coachandcoordinator.com. Sign up there for our weekly tip sheet, which shares the best ideas of each week. And follow us on X at Coach K. Grabowski.